All right, there is absolutely nothing to talk about in the NBA right now, so what better time than now to give my hot takes for this upcoming NBA season? And it should be noted that it's a lot more difficult to even come up with hot takes when there's so much parity in the NBA, because what would really be all that surprising? There's so many teams that I could tell you could be a 3 seed or a 7 seed and you would not be all that surprised. But at the same time, I don't want to say something outlandish that I don't really believe at all. So it's a delicate balance, and let's start with one that is not surprising if you've been around this channel. People are gonna say this one is outlandish for sure, but let's get it out the way. My first hot take is that Brandon Ingram will make his second All-Star team. And I'm not predicting some crazy year from BI, but I actually believe in this Raptors team, and I think he's gonna be the leading scorer on this team, and I feel like Scotty Barnes doesn't quite have that cachet yet to immediately guarantee that he's going to be the all-star, right? So I'm not even saying BI would deserve it over Scotty Barnes. I'm not going to use words like deserve for that. But what I'm saying is if Scotty Barnes is averaging 18 points, 9 boards, 5 assists, and BI is averaging 23 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, I think BI is more likely to make an all-star team. I do believe he's going to have a great year. I do believe he's highly motivated to remind people who he is, but it's more so a bet on this actual team. And maybe a little bit of a bet against the rest of the East, the middle portion of the East. Really 3 teams, and I'm not saying the Raptors are going to be better than any of these teams, but maybe they just aren't as great as we're thinking, and maybe the Raptors can be up there with those teams. Not saying better than, but like the Pistons, the Hawks, we're kind of just assuming they're going to keep getting better. But what if the Raptors are right there with them? I'm not predicting that with any one specific team, but like we're expecting Atlanta to win 47, 48 games. What if they win 44? What if the Pistons don't have this huge jump and they just remain a 44-win team? What if the Magic don't win 50 games? Like I feel like the Raptors have the potential to compete in that little area, probably the bottom half of it, but I think they could be right there in the middle of the pack, at least at the All-Star break. And I think Brandon Ingram sneaks into his second All-Star game. Obviously, he would be competing with like Pascal Siakam. Do they consider Jaylen Brown a forward or a guard? I always get confused on that one. I think he's been a guard majority of times he's made it. So probably Franz Wagner, Jalen Johnson, Pascal Siakam, Paul George, maybe a Jared Allen, his teammate Scotty Barnes. Like that's who he's going to be competing with for one of those last All-Star spots. And I think Brandon Ingram does have kind of a big name. And if the Raptors are playing well, people are going to want to give Brandon Ingram the credit because he's the new guy. And if he doesn't make it this year, I think it might be wraps for his career. So I think he makes it this year. Hot take. This is one I genuinely do believe in, but I want you guys to remember that these are hot takes. So if your reaction is, what am I talking about? Well, that's kind of supposed to be your reaction. These are things that I truly believe can happen, but they would be a little bit crazy. The next one probably going to be the craziest one I say, probably. And we're still waiting on something to happen here, but hear me out. The Kings make the playoffs. If the rumors are true that they are going to trade Malik Monk in order to free up a roster spot to sign Russell Westbrook, then my hot take is the Kings are going to upset all of us, make the playoffs just to go home in the first round. They're going to send home a team like the Spurs or the Mavericks or the Grizzlies, all teams we would rather see than this Kings team. But if they get Russell Westbrook, we know what now it's a different version of Westbrook. It's not even Wizards Westbrook anymore. But he's going to win regular season games. We've seen what DeMar and Zach LaVine look like last time they had a point guard that just pushed the tempo in Lonzo Ball. Now, Lonzo was a great shooter at that point as well. That's a lot different here. But I think they're going to win games being veterans. DeMar, Zach, Sabonis, Russ, Dennis Schroeder, Keegan Murray, Keon Ellis. I don't love it. I actually hate what they're doing. I think they are the dumbest organization in the NBA. And nothing shows it more than the Malik Monk portion of this. I actually made a video after they traded for Zach LaVine. The title of that video was "The Kings Are Dumb." And what I pointed out in that video was, due to De'Aaron Fox missing some time earlier in the year, and then De'Aaron Fox, all the trade rumors, I don't know if that's why it happened, but Malik Monk was much more empowered in the Kings offense. So much so, in the month of January, he averaged 22 points per game and almost 8 assists per game. And De'Aaron Fox played majority of those games as well. But he was balling, right? And when they traded De'Aaron Fox, I immediately thought, okay, it makes sense, right? Malik Monk is playing at this crazy level. He's not going to sustain it, right? Realistically, he's not going to play at an all-star level for the rest of his career or for the rest of this year, especially when you bring in another guard to do a lot of the things he does in Zach LaVine. I know they're different players, right? But I'm thinking, okay, smart. You're going to bring in Zach LaVine and you're going to flip Malik Monk. And I believe at that time I was saying you trade Malik Monk for Daniel Gafford, something I feel like would have made a ton of sense. But no, they keep Malik Monk. He plays worse to finish out that year, and his trade value goes back down to what it was, and people don't have the idea of Malik Monk as this borderline all-star player, which they might have had if you didn't trade Zach LaVine and diminish his role, and you bring in another asset that people don't really want in Zach LaVine. We just seen years of teams not wanting to give up a lot for him, so you bring in him, an asset that's not really that big of an asset, the league has told us, and you diminish the asset you already had in Malik Monk. So, and you kind of limit DeMar DeRozan in a way. Very, very dumb. So I say all that just to let it be known that I don't agree with the Kings process in any way. But I do believe that if they trade Malik Monk, it would have to be them trading like a 2-for-1. Another dumb thing that they might actually do, because we've been hearing Devin Carter's name in trade rumors. We heard that the Kings offered Malik Monk, Devin Carter for Kuminga. Wait, did we hear that? I think we heard that. If we did hear that, the Warriors, I don't really know why you wouldn't take that. But anyways, if the Kings can figure out a way to trade Malik Monk, and let's say you throw in Doug McDermott or Dario Saric in a 2-for-1 because they need to open up a roster spot, if they can do that and get like another defensive wing, a name I just thought of, but I don't think it would work. Like if they were able to trade Malik Monk and Doug McDermott for Royce O'Neal and add Westbrook, I would like this team for what it is, right? To be a feisty 8 seed, but not to do anything. But that's what the Kings are. I guess that's what they want to be. And I feel like they're going to do something like that. And it's going to be fun to watch Russ. It's going to be fun to watch DeMar and Zach and Sabonis. But overall, it's just going to be annoying. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying it's smart. But DeMar and Zach is a lot of scoring on the wing. With a point guard like Westbrook to get them open, and a center like Sabonis that can get them open, and another wing or forward in Keegan Murray that can hit 10 threes in a game, and a great perimeter defender like Keon Ellis. If they can add one more perimeter defender, it might be a pretty decent team. Also, when you consider DeMar doesn't really miss games, Sabonis doesn't really miss games, Westbrook doesn't really miss games. I didn't even mention Dennis Schroeder, right? Zach LaVine injury history is a little bit overstated, so I think they're going to be healthy as well, which would again be annoying, right? It would be super annoying if this team beats out like the Spurs for the last playoff spot. But that is my hot take. The Sacramento Kings ruin the party and make the playoffs. All right, next hot take might not seem like a hot take initially when I say it, but when you think about how many great players there currently are in the NBA and think about where this guy has kind of fallen to in our minds, it's kind of a hot take. But it's that Ja Morant will remind the world who he is and make an all-NBA team. Now, I'm not saying the Grizzlies are going to be great, but I think Ja Morant will be great enough to warrant all-NBA. I think he's going to be a highlight factory again. I think sometimes less is more, and there's no Desmond Bane. I'm not saying they got better. I'm saying there's going to be more required out of Ja Morant on a nightly basis now. After playing the majority of a year in an offense that wasn't really emphasizing him, I'm not sure who to blame for that, but whoever was making that decision to run their specific offense, it wasn't like a great offense, so I don't give them credit for that, but I do empathize with the idea of building and catering our whole offense to a guy that's not here on a nightly basis in Ja Morant. So I get the push and pull of that. But now going back to an offense that seems like it's going to be predicated on how do we get Ja Morant going. And even before the firing of Taylor Jenkins, it seemed like we were headed in that direction, but it didn't help the optics of it when Ja Morant was missing time and then he comes back the day after Jenkins is fired. So that just looks bad. But if you look at it, the last 5 games he played under Taylor Jenkins, 31 points, 32 points, 29 points, 28 points, 44 points. So it was clearly turning back into the Ja Morant show. And I think we're going to see that going into next year. I think people are sleeping on this team in general. I might be one as well. One of the people sleeping on this team, obviously they bring in KCP. They get Ty Jerome, another year Zach Edey, Brandon Clark's going to be back. How does that look? Another year Aldama. There is pieces on this team. It's really Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson are the swing factors. Like if they're real, we already know they're real NBA rotation players, but if they become like starter level players, then maybe we're cooking with something here. But it's really all about Ja Morant, and if he can be at an all NBA level again, then this team can compete for a playoff spot. That sounds crazy to say about a team that always competes for one when Ja Morant's healthy, but that was a team with Desmond Bane. Now Ja Morant's gonna have to do even more, and I think he's excited for the opportunity, and I'm excited to watch it because a couple years ago, I don't think people, I mean, they get it, but they don't get it. Like this guy was on track to be face of the NBA type stuff. Before Anthony Edwards, it was Ja Morant. Like I think we kind of forget he was putting up 27 points per game. This guy already has 2 47-point playoff games and another 45-point playoff game. Like I think Ja Morant has a crazy year and reminds the world of who he is. And why that kind of is actually a hot take when you look at the NBA and how many young players have, I don't want to say surpassed Ja Morant in terms of level of player, but surpassed him in the overall discussion. If we want to start with guards, like when Ja Morant was averaging 27 points per game, Jalen Brunson was still a backup, right? Obviously Halliburton's hurt. Cade Cunningham has arrived. And then guys like Paolo, obviously not a guard, has arrived. Like I mentioned before, Anthony Edwards, not only the on-court excitement, right? Two of the most exciting players in the NBA to watch, the shoe sales, the face of the NBA, they were kind of getting that. Ja Morant was kind of getting that same push early in his career, and it was natural because everyone wanted to watch Ja Morant. The jersey sales were crazy. And then just the cultural impact, right? Ja Morant was the cool, call it what it is, the cool young black guy that appealed to a certain demographic. I'm getting way off topic here, but just in general, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean, right? Ja Morant was that guy. And I think he gets back to being that guy this year. Now, I'm not sure he's ever going to eclipse what Anthony Edwards is doing, but I think he gets back to being a name that we talk about on a daily basis again in terms of the discussion about the stars in the NBA today. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I do have some maybe negative hot takes, but I don't even want to put that energy in the world right now. Let's just be positive and talk about teams that I feel like, or players I feel like are gonna have some great years. But let me know in the comments down below what you think. Let me know your hottest takes for this upcoming season. Let me know if you agree or disagree with mine. Let me know in the comments down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. It will mean the world to me. We are almost at 11,000 subscribers. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.